My brothers and sisters, what is going on? This is Steel Sermon in the house Sunday evening with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link in the description below. Sorry I'm a little underdressed. I literally just got out of the gym, did a full body Tabata, and I am exhausted. But want to come on here and talk about a rumor that's been spreading around with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I honestly have a lot of mixed feelings about it. So, Chase Young, a very prolific centerpiece for the Washington Commanders, who went second overall with them 3 years ago in the draft, has been declined a fifth-year option, which means he's open to pretty much every team in the league. And one of the teams that are interested in him are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, obviously, this is just a rumor, and there has been a little bit of speculation that we could make a move on him, considering what Omar Khan has done in his first full season as GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I want to talk about the overall factor of Chase Young. Now, Mike Tomlin's actually come on and said that he's a big fan of Chase Young, and it goes back to when we played Washington back in 2020 when they handed us our first loss of the season. We entered that game 11-0. Tomlin said something like, "I don't ever want to lose enough games to get a guy like you to Chase Young," something like that, which tells me, hey, I will do anything to get a pass rusher like this on our linebacking core and on our defensive line. But Chase Young lately has dealt with a lot of injury problems that has really set him back. He is injury prone, but then again, so is a guy like Ryan Shazier. But, you know how a guy like Ryan Shazier was when he was healthy. Same thing with Chase Young. But when Chase Young tore his ACL back, I think it was in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, he's only played 12 games since, and he's only recorded 1.5 sacks. Now, obviously, an ACL is a major injury, and it can take anywhere from like a year to a couple of years to fully recover from. And I'm going to give Chase Young the benefit of the doubt by saying that he's not fully recovered from it. But at the same time, those numbers are incredibly alarming right there, considering what he was back from his rookie season up until that ACL injury. 12 games, 1.5 sacks. He has all the potential to be one of the best pass rushers in the league. He has all the potential to be one of the best sack leaders in the league. So that's why I think that's a great compliment right there to a guy like TJ Watt. And then, of course, he could possibly be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, which, again, compliments TJ Watt really well, considering TJ Watt won Defensive Player of the Year back in 2021, where he tied Michael Strahan's record in sacks. So that looks great on a resume right there for Chase Young. And hey, I'm all for the guy. The guy's, still young. He has a ton of potential. We know what he is when he's healthy. But there are a lot of questions that all bundle up into one thing when it comes to Chase Young. Can he stay healthy? How much would we give up for him? What would this mean for Alex Highsmith? Is he going to be a depth guy or a regular starter? And what is his role going to be should he come to the Pittsburgh Steelers? Now, the first thing that strikes me right off the bat is it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to come in as fitting as the Steelers would be for Chase Young, because like I said, what would this mean for Alex Highsmith? You're obviously not going to start Chase Young, so why would you bench Alex Highsmith when he has steadily been evolving into the guy who's working with opposite of TJ Watt and the guy who is quite frankly becoming a leader on this linebacking core and a leader on this defense as a whole? Alex Highsmith is a guy that you want to be out there for almost every single snap and a guy that you want to start all 17 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the the player that Alex Highsmith has evolved into. So why would you bench him to start a guy, for all intents and purposes, is not fully recovered from an ACL injury? Doesn't make sense to me. Then you talk about what we would give up for him. I've heard a day 2 pick. I've heard of a first rounder for him. I've heard of second round picks for him. Whatever. The point is, are you really willing to gamble your future, your important future, with the state that the Pittsburgh Steelers are in right now? Because let's face it, I mean, obviously the goal in Pittsburgh is to win the Super Bowl, right? We've won 6 of them, and we've been to 8 of them. So that's always going to be the ultimate goal in Pittsburgh. But you take a look at the state that the Steelers are in right now, this ain't a Super Bowl team. But you get a guy who's going to take the reins in the GM spot like Omar Khan, a guy who's aggressive, a guy who's not afraid to pull the trigger, a guy who's not afraid to forfeit draft picks, a guy who's not afraid to trade futures away. We saw that back in April when we traded down to New England to get Broderick Jones. Okay, so we know that these draft picks, we can budget them and we can mortgage them, and we can get a vital piece to help us take that next step forward. But again, is it worth for a guy like Chase Young? You know? Do you really want to gamble that much for a guy who has only played, who's only good for at most 75% of a season? I just don't think so. And this is no shot at Omar Khan. I mean, look, I'm completely on board with Omar Khan because, like I said, the guy's aggressive. He's like everything. He's pretty much like what Kevin Colbert wishes that he could have been. He's more aggressive than Kevin Colbert. He's not afraid to make a move like Kevin Colbert was. He's not afraid, to surrender down and to move down a couple pieces to get the best available option like Kevin Colbert. And also with Omar Khan, we know that he's financially smart as well, considering that he worked under Kevin Colbert all these years with the financial structures to make sure that we're as financially stable as possible. Okay? So honestly, in my opinion, this would kind of be a little bit of an out-of-character move right here for Omar Khan if we landed Chase Young and he comes on over to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I must stress, especially with the lack of depth that we have in multiple positions, O-line, corners, safeties, linebackers. Those are the top ones that I can think of at the top of my head that we have lack of depth in. And I think Chase Young would be a really good depth piece for the linebacking core, considering what he is. But that just goes back to my main point. Is he going to be brought in here as a depth piece? And if so, why would you make him a regular starter when you know what Alex Highsmith is evolving into and what he means to the team right now? The way I see it, it's one or the other, because you ain't having both. Chase Young is going to be there to play every game. If you're going to land him in here, he's going to be a starter. Or you have Alex Highsmith and put Chase Young in as a depth piece. Okay? It just doesn't make sense to me. I like Chase Young a lot. Like I said in the beginning, I think he's still young. He's very physical. He's very aggressive. And he definitely can be a sack leader and a defensive player of the year candidate. And I think I honestly do think he plays like a Pittsburgh Steeler, There's certain players in the league where you're like, oh yeah, that guy's meant to be a Steeler, or that guy's meant to be a Packer, or that guy's meant to be a Chicago Bear, or that guy would have played very well with the Raiders back in the 70s, or that guy would have fit the Ravens defense well back in 2000, you know what I mean? And that's what I get out of Chase Young. He plays like a Pittsburgh Steeler. He really does. But does it really make a whole lot of sense to bring him in here now, considering that we pretty much already have that guy on the opposite side of TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith? And do you really want to risk benching Alex Highsmith for a guy who, for all intents and purposes, just cannot stay healthy for a full season? So that's my thing with Chase Young. I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I like him as a player, but to me it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I honestly think it would be a little bit out of character for Omar Khan here. But anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments below. This is Steel Sermon checking on out for the night. May God be with you all.